Welcome, everyone. Today I thought we'd take a look at the 1964 classic MGM motion picture, Viva Las Vegas. Translation, Long Live Las Vegas. Of course, starring the king, Elvis Presley, Cesare de Nova, and at the time relative newcomer Anne Margaret. He was 28, she was 22, and many consider it one of Elvis's best movies. The title not only became an idiom for the city, but it gave Las Vegas its very own theme song. Now, we've all heard how the sparks flew between the two, both on and off the screen. So we're not going to rehash old news, but we're going to take a look at some of the filming locations in and around Las Vegas and compare the then versus now aspects. And since I'm a Viva Las Vegan born and raised, we'll take a look back at Las Vegas history, specifically the history that was taking place while the movie was being shot. And that would be the summer of 1963. So join me for this venture into Viva Las Vegas. After the opening Vegas montage, Elvis is introduced by his arrival at the Flamingo Hotel. In this Las Vegas News Bureau aerial picture, you see the Flamingo's original property configuration, the angled front driveway, the pool area, as well as Las Vegas Boulevard, and a very lonely Flamingo Road. Today you can see there's very little change. Well, at least the property lines are essentially the same. Everything else, unrecognizable. The Flamingo's Casino opened the day after Christmas 1946, and the hotel opened just several months later, making it by seniority the oldest operating hotel casino on the Strip. So back to the 1963 configuration, Elvis would have pulled up and entered the casino, approximately where Margaritaville is located today. And before we leave the Flamingo, there are several notable background extras in the opening shots. Kent McCord, who would later star in Adam 12 and become the first national vice president of the Screen Actors Guild. And Elvis's close high school friend and confidant, Robert Gene Red West.
Here they go.
Although the story is based in and around Las Vegas, we all know that movies by definition are illusions. So most of the movie was actually shot in Culver City at then MGM Studios. We'll take a trip to Culver City later in this video. For those who haven't seen the movie, Elvis plays Lucky Jackson, a race car driver attempting to compete in the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and Margaret plays Rusty Martin, a swim instructor at the Flamingo Hotel, and Cesare de Nova plays Count Elmo Mancini, who is not only competing in the race, but also for Rusty's attention.
I intend to win.
And Margaret's introduction to the movie was both in Culver City and Las Vegas in just 2 shots. You see, the car garage, which was extensively used, was a set at MGM.
Can you help me, please?
Can we help you? Yes, ma'am.
Well, then I'd like you to check my motor. It whistles.
I don't blame it.
But the outside of the garage was on location in Las Vegas, and the actors would walk in and out of a facade wall.
What I call a real sporty model.
Oh, I agree. A beautiful line.
Before I show you where this was shot, I want to share with you some very humorous direction notes from the on-location script regarding that last sequence. They get up from their rollerboards and follow Rusty out of the garage, camera moving with them, but showing Rusty from Lucky and Mancini's point of view. She swings along in front of them, her wonderful legs stepping proudly, her little behind moving rhythmically. Lucky and Mancini are very aware of her. Camera holds outside of garage. Yes, it was 1963. So this is probably the most used exterior location while filming in Las Vegas, and it will require a little explanation to show you just where it took place and some more Las Vegas history. Let's start again with a great aerial picture from that time frame, and we'll explain what you're seeing, where they were, and what it looks like now. In this picture, we're facing east, and starting in the foreground, you see the landmark hotel. Now, in 1963, it was sitting stagnant due to financial issues, and it was about 80% complete. It wouldn't be completed and open until 1969, when Howard Hughes bought it during his Las Vegas buying spree. Right in front of the landmark is Paradise Road, known then as State Route 605. Directly beside the landmark would be Convention Center Drive, which obviously leads into the relatively new Las Vegas Convention Center. And on the right, Desert Inn Road. The round building in the middle was known as the Rotunda, and it hosted many big events. Just several months after the Viva Las Vegas film crew left town, President Kennedy would visit the Rotunda. And in 1964, it hosted the Beatles. And in the years that followed, I was able to attend a number of events there before it was demolished. Now, the interesting part of this photo is obviously at the top. In the upper left-hand corner sat the failed Las Vegas Park Racetrack. It was originally opened as a 1-mile dirt horse track. In the upper right corner are the stables. So it turned out the developer was a fraudster and he pocketed most of the investors' money. It was open for only 13 days before closing. They attempted to salvage it by running car races and using it for conventions, but by 1963 it was abandoned and closed for good. So direct your attention to the small berm near the stables. That marks where the film crew set up shop. The movie crew decorated it with landscape and it served as a background in most of the shots. Well, that all sounds interesting, but what does it look like now? And let's just take a moment more to discuss how it transitioned into what we see today. I'm currently at Desert Inn Road and Joe W. Brown Drive. Now that's the street that runs behind the convention center and in front of the Las Vegas Country Club. But who is Joe W. Brown? Well, he was a multi-millionaire Texas oil man, and he had several links to Las Vegas, but we're just going to concentrate on how he helped develop the area that we're speaking of. In 1955, he bought the Las Vegas Park Racetrack out of bankruptcy, which included 480 acres of land. He was able to pay back many of the defrauded investors with much more than they expected, and he vowed to county officials that he would hold on to property for them to build a convention center. In 1956, the deal was made, and the convention center would be built. Brown died in February of 1959, just before the convention center opened in April. His estate sold the remaining property to an equities firm who, just after Viva Las Vegas was released, built the Las Vegas Country Club. They then sold the west portion of the property to Kirk Kerkorian, who built the International Hotel, which became Elvis's home away from home. And oh, don't forget Anne Margaret's. So after all that information, these shots were filmed just inside this gate at the Las Vegas Country Club. So the next time you're playing through the 6th hole, just remember Elvis and Anne Margaret were in the area in the summer of 1963. We'll cover just a few more shots while we're in the area. This took place in the rear lot of the 1963 Convention Center, but today it would be inside of the Central Hall just off of Joe W. Brown. So let's return for a moment to our original layout picture, and over on the left middle you see a black curved line that is actually the old access road to the racetrack, Las Vegas Parkway. It was on that access road that this shot took place.
Here's my shift point. Watch me burn up the guy ahead.
Why?
Because we gotta win, that's why.
So, Las Vegas Parkway is actually covered up by the Westgate Hotel. But the asphalt would have ended here in the rear parking lot of the Race and Sportsbook off of Joe W. Brown. In that last clip, you see the Sahara Hotel in the background. This is the hotel that the cast and crew stayed in while filming in Las Vegas. Here's a shot of Elvis signing autographs poolside during his stay. And of course, as you'd expect, the Sahara has gone through a number of refurbishments over the years, but as they say, the bones have remained the same. Growing up, my folks would take us there for lunch on occasion, and my sister and I would always run and visit the camels. And so did Viva Las Vegas.
I guess so.
Hey, Rusty,
Hi.
what are you two talking about?
Oh, Rusty was asking about...
Yeah?
Oh, nothing. We were just discussing cars and drivers.
For the most part, the camels always lived on the southwest portion of the property, right off the sidewalk of Las Vegas Boulevard.
Oh,
Hey, this way.
Although they were removed sometime around 2011, that corner of the property still remains untouched. So the next hotel we're going to talk about is the Sands. The Sands and its Copa Room were no strangers to big stars and movies. When you think Sands, most people think of the Rat Pack and Ocean's 11. But another MGM picture filmed there 8 years prior to Viva Las Vegas. It starred the incredible Sid Charisse and Dan Daly. Besides both movies being shot in Las Vegas and produced by MGM, there are a few other similarities. The title of the movie was Meet Me in Las Vegas. Well, sort of. Apparently, when it was re-released in Europe, the name was changed to, yes, Viva Las Vegas. And just as Elvis pulled up in front of the Flamingo hauling a car on a trailer, Dan Daly pulls up in front of the Sands hauling a horse on a trailer. We're lucky that the Sands kept files on most of their movie and television shoots, and those files were donated to the UNLV Special Collections. And we'll go through some of those files as our journey into Viva Las Vegas continues. So in the movie, both Elmo and Lucky decide to search Las Vegas for Rusty, because after all, she was so beautiful, she just had to be a showgirl. Their first stop, the Sands Hotel and the famous Copa Room.
I thought you were on your way to Los Angeles, my friend.
The same way you were going to work on your motor, my friend, remember?
They were, of course, seated front row on the rail, close to where this famous picture was taken several years earlier of Marilyn Monroe and Dean Martin at his birthday party. In the Sands archives, there are a number of documents to include behind-the-scenes photographs from the segments shot there, the actual agreement contract between MGM and the Sands, the final script, memos to all employees regarding the filming, as well as handwritten notes from the director, George Sidney. There were even handwritten notes for wardrobe with all the showgirls' names, measurements, and even shoe sizes. It really was fun and a very informative visit to the UNLV Special Collections archives. And as for the Sands, well, it met its demise like many others. Now it's home to the Venetian Resort, the largest hotel in Las Vegas and the second largest in the world. So Lucky returns to the Flamingo Hotel, and he discovers that Rusty is a lifeguard. From that point, there are many memorable scenes shot poolside at the Flamingo.
Well, what I really need is a swimming lesson.
I'm through with swimming lessons for today.
So as you saw earlier, the pool in the courtyard pretty much got chewed up as the hotel developed over the years. It would appear as though the pool from 1963 has been gobbled up by improvements. And there's no doubt that portions of that large courtyard still remain today.
I said the lady loves me.
The gentlemen's all wet.
So our next location has caused a little bit of controversy over the years, but we'll try to straighten it out.
And I got a whole day to spend with you. So?
So, all right.
Yeah?
Meet me at the University of Nevada tomorrow.
So first, let's talk about UNLV. There was none. Well, to be a little more precise, in 1963, the name was actually the University of Nevada Southern Regional Division. The more popular name was Nevada Southern, and the nickname was Tumbleweed Tech, for obvious reasons in this picture.
Meet me at the University Gymnasium tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And we'll, dance.
Or something.
And there starts the controversy. The University of Nevada Southern Regional Division. Okay, what do you say we just say UNLV from now on? They did have a gym, and in fact, it's only one of several buildings that still exist today. It's been repurposed as the Marjorie Barrick Museum of Art. And for years now, there have been articles written and rumors passed along that the iconic Elvis and Anne Margaret song and dance scene took place inside of this gym. As a local, I wanted to believe it, but sadly, it just didn't. If you go down the rabbit hole and research long enough, you'll find articles that were written at the time and eyewitness accounts that identify just where it happened. No, it wasn't on the sound stages of MGM, but it was as close as you can get. It was right across the street. So it was actually the building here behind me in Culver City that stood in for the UNLV gym. That building is the Veterans Memorial Building, and the segment was shot in the auditorium. The day I visited, the room was set up for an event, but I can still easily take you through scene by scene. I guess first we should point out the placard on the wall for the University of Nevada Southern Regional Division, which, as we already know, was correct for the time. Now, if you look at the front of the stage, you'll see a series of audio and electrical outlets. Those same outlets are present today. And as I pointed out, the curtains are drawn because of an upcoming production, but they just so happen to be red, just like in 1963. So let's go backstage and take a look at where the university placard seen here was mounted. So again, sneaking behind the back curtain, you can see the length of the wall, and here is the actual girder that the placard was mounted on. Just one additional point, pay attention to this conduit at the top. In this still picture, you can see they just tied the placard to that conduit. And from this shot to the right, you can see the curtain and light riggings along the wall, the ladder on the wall that we just saw a moment ago, and the double doors were actually replaced with a roll-up door. Once Elvis joins in, there's a nice side shot off to the right. Take note of the double doors and the fire hose cabinet against the wall. Besides some obvious updates, everything matches up perfectly. And before we head home from Culver City, we'll do one more. So in this shot, we're looking back into the auditorium from the stage, and you can see the balcony up above. First, draw your attention to the middle of the balcony. That is the control room, which has 4 distinct square windows on it. 2 are actually hidden behind Anne Margaret's head. Aside from the fancy umbrella lighting on the ceiling and a fresh coat of paint, not much has changed.
Up, and away!
So what do you say we skip the 4.5-hour drive and head back to Viva Las Vegas? So at this point in the movie, Lucky is getting some traction with Rusty, and they start a whirlwind tour of the Las Vegas Valley. We'll take a look at some of those locations now. The first stop is skeet shooting at the Thunderbird Gun Club. But where was that? Well, it involves a name that many locals will recognize. The person that started and owned the gun range. Bob Taylor. Yes, the namesake of Bob Taylor's Ranch House restaurant. After World War II, Bob would purchase 80 acres of land, which at the time was out in the middle of nowhere off Tonopah Highway north of town. That would be US 95 today. On that land, he built a trap and skeet range to attract shooting events and competitions. He also built a small ranch/range house right next to the course. After a long day of shooting, he'd invite his customers and friends to a barbecue, where he'd grill steaks over mesquite coals. That became so popular that he was talked into starting a restaurant, and he didn't take reservations. It wasn't because he didn't want to, it was because he was so far out of town he didn't have phone service. And that original ranch house and addition remain today. So by the time 1963 rolled around, he had entered into an agreement with the Thunderbird Hotel to make the range the Thunderbird Gun Club, and he became the director. Anne Margaret actually came out prior to filming and took some lessons from Bob, and she did well. But during the actual filming, Bob stood off camera and shot the clay pigeons for her. Over the years, the 80 acres dwindled down to what you see here today, but Bob Taylor's is still the secret getaway. It's just not that far out of town anymore. All right, our next stop is the showdown at Las Vegas Corral. All right, that sounds close enough. At one time, there was actually a theme park on the Strip, way before the MGM. It was called Last Frontier Village. It sat between the Silver Slipper and the Hotel Last Frontier. In the 50s, it was the #1 tourist attraction next to Hoover Dam. In this aerial picture, it'll help us get a perspective on exactly where they were shooting. We're looking eastbound, and across Las Vegas Boulevard would be the Desert Inn Hotel, which of course now is the Wynn. Then we have the Silver Slipper, and everything behind would be Old Frontier Village. Elvis and Ann would be having their showdown right about here. Now in 1963, when they shot the film, Old Frontier Village had been closed for several years, but the buildings were still intact. Now when our aerial photo pulls out, down at the bottom you see the Sportsdrome Racetrack. It had also closed prior to 1963. The one thing in the picture that is still there is the Desert Inn Country Club. It just has the name Wynn in front of it now. Today it's actually a very rare vacant lot on the Las Vegas Strip, and it once housed both the Frontier Hotel and the Silver Slipper. The Silver Slipper portion would be up in the upper left-hand corner as we rotate around. A portion of the land that the Silver Slipper and the theme park sat on was taken for the DI Arterial. The Wynn now owns the property, and the original plan was to build Wynn West, but those plans have been on hold for years. So, one last stop on our tour. Lucky borrows a helicopter and takes Rusty sightseeing, and they take off right outside of the brand new mid-century modern McCarran Field Air Terminal. That historic terminal that went into service in 1963 remains there today. And they make their way to Lake Mead. And it turns out that Rusty lives with her father at Lake Mead Marina on the second floor.
The lake has 550 miles of shoreline, and that's the marina coming up right there ahead of us.
Aside from the 1963 lake level being about 100 feet higher, the Lake Mead Marina is the Lake Mead Marina. And minus some set decorations on the second floor, it looks about the same. All the interior shots were on a soundstage at MGM.
I want to earn enough money to help my father buy a boat.
A boat?
Yes, he runs a sightseeing boat on the lake now.
That boat was actually a 40-foot yacht that belonged to the Thunderbird Hotel. As the crew moved around the valley, it was no surprise to the residents. Most every move was documented in the newspaper, from the hotels chosen to be in the movie to open invitations to try out for dancing parts. Even car dealership ads to make sure you didn't miss out on getting that new Triumph 4. So I guess you could look as good as Anne Margaret? And it's worth mentioning that Terry Garr was a dancer in the movie, here front and center, and she was also in the gymnasium scene. She actually appeared in 5 Elvis movies.
See the girl with the red dress on.
Oh yes, we see her all right, and it's former Las Vegan Tony Basil of Las Vegas High, class of '61, and of course, the head cheerleader.
Tell me what I say.
Good news, we are quickly approaching the end. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Just not yet. So at last, the Las Vegas Grand Prix has started, and here you see all the cars turning onto Fremont from Maine. Even though a lot has changed, a lot has actually remained the same. One of the first changes is at the head of Fremont. The building here was the Union Pacific Las Vegas station. Here's a nice daytime shot. That building stayed in place until 1971, when the Union Plaza Hotel was built in its place. The Union Plaza continued to act as a train and bus depot. Today it's simply known as the Plaza. The cars would have initially staged right here on Main Street, which really hasn't changed all that much. They would have been heading southbound towards me and making a left onto Fremont. In 1994, a 5-block section of Fremont was closed to traffic and the Fremont Street canopy was constructed. It made its debut on New Year's Eve of 1995. The cars continued eastbound on Fremont and turned right onto 2nd Street. In 1965, 2nd Street was renamed Casino Center, which it still is today. The classic Golden Nugget sign seen here, as well as many others seen in the movie, are on display at the Neon Museum, just several blocks away from downtown. It's a fun visit. Next, they crossed Hoover Dam, and they made some really good time, obviously. Well, as you'd expect, the dam really hasn't changed, visually at least, but one thing is for sure, that the traffic moves much, much slower than in this movie. And just one of those picky observations, somehow they made it into Arizona, because that's the direction they were coming from. Of course, like most movies, the locations jump all over the place, and it really makes no sense to the locals, but it's still fun to watch. The next series of shots took place at Valley of Fire, which is just under 50 miles outside Las Vegas. Many of these shots took place on what is known as Mouse's Tank Road, which is a very popular place to drive and hike. Not much has changed at all since 1963. Now, if we freeze this shot for just a moment, there are deputies from the Clark County Sheriff's Department Search and Rescue Section. They followed the movie crew throughout, and they can be seen in many of the race shots. They were accompanied by the Sheriff's Jeep Posse volunteers. Neither organization exists today. From Valley of Fire, we're back at Lake Mead, just several miles from the dam. This shot took place at Lake Shore Road and the Great Basin Highway. It's just a few hundred yards away from the Hoover Dam Lodge. Today, Lakeshore Road curves leading into the Visitor Center, prior to intersecting with the Great Basin Highway. But in 1963, the road continued straight and came out right here. In this nice elevated shot, you can actually see the ghosting of the road's original path. Now, the next scene took place in Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas proper. It happened right here at Boulder Highway and Sunset. In 1963, there was a racetrack called the Thunderbird Raceway. In World War II, it actually acted as an old auxiliary runway. After it was converted, it had a high-banked turn, which they used for this scene. Today you can see the remains of the track and even the banking, but it appears the property is very close to being developed into residential. Next, we're off to Kyle Canyon, or probably better known as Mount Charleston, which is about 45 miles from Las Vegas. This series of shots took place on State Route 157, or Kyle Canyon Road. And this particular shot was on a well-known curve to locals, which used to lead up to the famous Mount Charleston Lodge before it burned down in 2021. This is what that same curve looks like today. Now, if we freeze the last shot, you can see our friends from the Sheriff's Department standing by. Of course, there's been road improvements over the years, but the curve is basically the same today. Finally, we're on the home stretch to the finish line, and this shot is at Fremont Street and Oakey, just east of downtown Las Vegas. Let's freeze it and I'll show you a few interesting points. Just ahead in the median are friends from the Sheriff's Department and Jeep Posse. To the right, you see a building with a pointed roof. That was brand new at the time and was an Oldsmobile dealership. To the left is the Nashville, Nevada Club. Wynn Stewart, the name of the marquee, was a partner in the bar and is jokingly referred to as the first Wynn in Las Vegas. The house band included Merle Haggard, who was apparently introduced to Willie Nelson in the bar. Both buildings still exist today, and Lower Fremont Street really hasn't changed all that much. The old Nashville has been many things over the years and is closed once again. But the old car dealership, which was closed for a while, is now a car dealership again, and it's been recognized as just one of the few buildings left in Las Vegas built in the googie, futuristic architecture style of the time. And finally, we're at the finish line, which you can still drive today south on Casino Center at Fremont. So there you have it. The race and the video are complete. Oh, wait a minute. What about the Little Church of the West? Us locals call it the Little Chapel of the West, and it has a great story. It first opened in 1943, right next to where Elvis and Ann had their showdown at the old Frontier Village. In 1954, when they decided to build the new Frontier, they moved the church from the north side of the property to the south. And this was the location that Viva Las Vegas filmed, and it lived there until the end of 1978. When I was growing up, we actually lived just several blocks away, and all the neighborhood kids would get together and we'd go play football on the grass behind the church, and occasionally we'd crash a wedding to throw rice. To make way for the Fashion Show Mall, the church moved down the strip to the Hacienda. And you guessed it, in December of 1996, when the Hacienda closed, they moved once again to their current location near the Welcome to Las Vegas sign.
Crazy Vegas, baby!
So that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed it, and Viva, long live Las Vegas.
she loves my nacho. She loves me nacho. Here we go. She wants me,
Like poison ivy,
needs me.
like a hole in the head.
Anyone can see she's got it bad.
He's mad. The gentleman is an egotist.
I'm simply aware I'm hard to resist.
He's one man I could learn to hate.
How's about having dinner at 8?
I'd rather dine with a Frankenstein in a moonlight tete-a-tete.
The lady loves me, but she doesn't know it yet. Oh yes, she loves me.
Dig that shrinking violet.
Oh, she really loves me.
Here's one gal you'll never get.
She loves me.
Would you like to make a bet?
I said the lady loves me.
The gentleman's all